Farmers and Fishers puts each student in either the role of a local farmer or a fisherman. In this case, the fishermen are outfitters that run a fishing supply store in a town facing a water shortage. For this activity, you'll need slides of the scenario as well as other visuals that explain the United States water law and property rights rules in their community. You'll also need some reward or incentive to place in the center of the table for each team. We used money, but candy or bonus points work just as well. Prepare roll cards for each student in class. Half of your students will be farmers and half will be fishers. Put the students into groups of 4 to 6 students and pass out the roll cards, with half of the students in each group taking on the role of farmers and the other half the fishers. Okay, so now I'm going to give you set up the scenario for this activity. Some of you are going to be farmers and some of you are going to be fishers, okay? There's a small town that lies at the lower end of a valley in which 5 farmers... After you set up the scenario and the water law that prevails, explain that they must solve the dispute over the water in the valley. Make sure they understand that it's up to them whether or not to share what's on their roll card with the others in the group. Make it clear that the reward is theirs if they solve the problem and you cannot improve upon their solution. There'll be $1 per person, and you get to keep those dollars if you come up with a solution that I can't improve upon, okay? The problem is immediate, so you need to come up with a solution now for this season, this year. Okay, so here's the rules of the game. The farmers have the water rights under prior appropriation, okay? They were there first, they've been using this water. The farmers have a choice. They can choose to irrigate or not irrigate. It's their right to irrigate. The water belongs to them. And if they do, even though it's a low water year and they irrigate, they're going to be able to get 3 cuttings like they would any other year. If they don't irrigate, they're only going to get 2 cuttings. But if they do irrigate and they get their 3 cuttings, they're going to get their hay like usual, but it's going to hurt the outfitters, right? The outfitters are going to be out of luck because there's not enough water to have fish and streams that are flowing. There is no use it or lose it provision in the law, and there is no salvaged water provision in the law. And beneficial use does include diversion for agriculture, industry, mining, domestic water supplies, and even in-stream use for recreation and conservation. A better solution would be one that would make the farmers better off without hurting the fishermen, or make the fishermen better off without hurting the farmers, or make both the farmers and the fishermen better off. You want at least one party to be better off without hurting the other party. If somebody's worse off and I can come around and make a party better off, then I get to keep the money. Any questions? Give the students 10 to 15 minutes to work on the problem. To keep them accountable for their time and their solution, have each group appoint a recorder that will take notes and document their solution. Also have them appoint a spokesperson that will share their solution with the rest of the class. Walk around the room as they are discussing, playing devil's advocate if necessary, and answering any questions that the students might have. Students can often get sidetracked discussing pie-in-the-sky type solutions. So if you hear them talking about inventing weather control machines that will solve their water shortage, bring them back to the present and explain that the problem is here and now. It's real and they need a real solution that could be arranged today. Yeah, all we have to work with is what's on the cards. So when you think about, does this really solve the problem?
So how about we pay y'all $30,000? That way you're better off even than if you were.
You get subsidized in the low water years.
In the low water years. So you're even better off in the low water years.
So then we're still getting what we would $75,000, and it's less work too.
Right, and you could also look at it as like if we had...
There are many possible solutions to this activity. Use the decision tree to help them visualize the range of possible solutions that you cannot improve upon. Look at this slide up here. We're either going to have a high water year or a low water year. In a high water year, the farmers are going to make $75,000 and the outfitters are going to make $100,000. In low water years, it's dependent on whether or not the farmers irrigate. They have the water rights. It's their right to irrigate. And if they do irrigate, the farmers are still going to make $75,000. The outfitters are only going to make $20,000. If the farmers do not irrigate, the farmers will only make $50,000 and the outfitters are going to make $100,000. So it is a low water year, and it's dependent on whether or not the farmers choose to irrigate. In every one of these scenarios, the farmers chose not to irrigate, but they were only willing to do that if what happened? If the outfitters were able to give them some sort of compensation, because you're asking, why else would the farmers say, okay, instead of making $75,000, we'll make $50,000? Would they do? Is that in their best interest? No, and the rights rest with them. In the end, students get to keep the reward if their solution involved the fishers paying the farmers any amount between $25,000 and $80,000 for the water. The big lesson in this simulation is that property rights matter. The property rights or rules of the game allowed them to voluntarily come to a willing buyer, willing seller agreement.